Hey everyone, it's Desi, and I am back from the grave this October to give you guys a little update and a vlog. My friend and I decided that we wanted to do some traveling in our last couple months here in Ireland. We did graduate, we got our master's degrees, so very excited. But in the meantime, we did want to do some traveling and decided it'd be best to go to the colder countries before it became winter. So we decided on going to Copenhagen and then Bremen, Germany. So the reason this is getting released before my other videos, I have done other traveling. I've been to Greece and France with my mom. But the reason that I'm posting this one first is because my mom didn't go on this trip and she desperately wants to see everything that we got up to while we were in Denmark and Germany. So this one's for you, Mom, so you can see what I've been up to. And yeah, this video is going to be mostly voiceover because it is a little awkward to be talking in public in a strange country. It makes me feel a little self-conscious, so what I did was I filmed while I was there, and you're going to be hearing me today talk over the notes of the trip and recount my adventure for you. And yeah, thank you guys so much for sticking around while I've been traveling. It's hard to edit and, complete your master's degree and travel at the same time. So I appreciate you guys' patience. I didn't record anything the day that we left. We had a very busy day of traveling, so you won't see any footage from, going from Dublin to the airport into Copenhagen. But essentially what happened is that, we spent the day traveling. It was like a 2-hour flight. The most time involved goes towards getting to Dublin and sitting in the airport. But then we got the metro from Copenhagen into the city center, and we walked to our hotel. At night, what I should have videoed for you guys is we decided to go to a traditional restaurant because we just wanted that quintessential experience. And somehow we always get into trouble. In this case, it was that we went to a very traditional restaurant, and we were definitely out of our element. And as soon as we walked in, they sat us down next to everyone else, like we were shoulder to shoulder with people we didn't know, at a table sitting with people we didn't know, which for an American is very stressful, and for an introvert, very stressful. But yeah, it was definitely an interesting experience, and the food was amazing, so, I mean, we lucked out there, but at the same time, it was kind of like, oh, this is very, very different, which was, great. And I think it's interesting that they did that during COVID times. But then again, we are all vaccinated. Denmark is like 70-something% vaccinated at this point. So I think they just didn't care anymore. But we were taking precautions throughout this whole trip. Just so you guys know, we weren't just traipsing around, coughing over everyone. We went through all the necessary precautions and we good. What you'll be seeing is the next morning when we began our travels and our trips for the duration. So, starting with the next day, we walked from our hotel to an area known as Freetown Christiania. From what I could gather, this area used to be a military base until it was taken over by squatters in 1971 and is now kind of like an anti-violence anarchist community focused around art. It's famous for being a place where weed is sold openly, despite marijuana still being illegal in Denmark. And on the way, we saw some amazing buildings, including the Borsen, which is a 17th century building that used to be used for the stock exchange and is famous for its unique spire, which you'll see has 4 dragons with their tails twisting together. I thought that was so cool. We also walked by a church that had a Baroque-style corkscrew spire, which I thought was amazing. It definitely reminded me of some art history lessons that I had had before, and it just looked so beautiful. You aren't allowed to take any pictures in the Freetown or videos, so the only clip I have is from an art gallery garden where they had a sign saying it was okay to do so. I just wanted to respect the community's rules in general, but we did have a really good time walking around, looking at the sculptures and graffiti. And no, we did not partake in the weed, if any of y'all are curious. We had other places to see this day, including Strogette Street, which is a famous shopping street. We had plans to go to a theme park called Tivoli for their opening night of their Halloween season, but wanted to wait until dark. So in the meantime, we shopped around and walked a little bit on Strogette. So after getting some souvenirs, we decided it was time to rest for a little bit until dark so we could really take in the majesty of the Halloween display. Because let me tell you, if you think that this looks cool during the day, you have got to see it during the night. So by far, one of the best places we visited was Tivoli. They had just reopened for their Halloween season, and the park was absolutely decked out in pumpkins and lanterns. It was so magical. There were rides, games, and little shops open, and tons of places to eat, which I was super excited about because I have missed the American fair food season twice now by living in Ireland, so I made it my personal mission to make up for that there. They honestly must have had a really hefty budget for pumpkins and gourds because they were literally everywhere. I loved it so much, and it really put me in the fall spirit, and it was just undoubtedly one of the most majestic, magical places that we visited during our trip. It was absolutely 10 out of 10, great experience. Hey guys, I'm coming to you guys from Tivoli, which is a theme park here in Copenhagen, and I just want to do a little check-in with you guys. I got a cup of glögg, which is a warm mulled cider, and some Belgian waffles here that I'll show you. It has been a long day of walking, and we are just enjoying the Halloween decorations. They opened up today for their Halloween season, so as you can see, there's like pumpkins and lights everywhere. So yeah, I will see you guys in a little bit, but I did want to check in. I realized this video is going to be a lot of voiceover with how much walking we're doing. So after walking back to the hotel, we got a good night's rest because we were going to have another busy day the next day. We started off by having some breakfast in a cute little cafe that was tucked away in a courtyard, and proceeded to walk through the King's Gardens, also known as Kongenshav, in front of Rosenborg Castle. I do apologize for any mispronunciations because there will undoubtedly be some. It was supposed to rain that day, but it held off, so we got to have a nice walk around the grounds. I'm so glad that we did this trip in autumn because the architecture and the colors of the leaves turning was just so aesthetically pleasing. We did get to go inside the castle for a tour, which it's now kind of like a treasury, from what I gathered, of all the royal family's items of Denmark. I didn't take a crazy amount of footage in there because I wasn't sure if we were allowed to, and I didn't figure it out till the end that we were. But I did take some footage of this room because it housed all of their dinnerware and china that they had on display. And it was just absolutely overwhelming to see all of it in one tiny room, so I had to film it for you guys. And then I also took some footage of the throne room. Afterwards, we went to the National Art Museum of Denmark, which houses both Danish and international works of art. And this place was just absolutely massive, as you'll see in the next clip. So it took us most of the day to get through that. The next day we had a bus to catch to our next destination, so we only had about half a day to spend sightseeing, but I think we made the most of it. First we went to the National Museum of Denmark. Seeing some Viking artifacts was definitely high up on our list of things to do, and it was close by to the station, so it made a perfect activity for the day. I was super surprised to find that they had a toy exhibit there. We were expecting to find something on Legos because they are created in Denmark, but instead we found these adorable dollhouses, which I was kind of geeking out over because I am a sucker for miniature things. I can definitely imagine that this will be one of my hobbies when I become an older woman because I enjoy it so much. After that, we had just enough time to see Christiansborg Palace, which was where the Danish Parliament is seated, as well as the Prime Minister's office and the Danish Supreme Court. Right beside the palace was a lovely garden that shares a courtyard with the Danish Jewish Museum. This whole area was just very picturesque, and I think it was a great way to end our Denmark part of our trip. Yes, hello from a very wind-blown Desi. Our bus ride was about 6 hours to Hamburg, Germany, and during that ride we had to get on a ferry, so this is me enjoying some time on the deck. The ferry was literally such an anomaly to me. I have only been on small rundown ferries, so getting on one that massive was very, very cool. After our layover in Hamburg, we'd finally made it to Bremen around 3 a.m., so we slept in very late and didn't have time to go to the older part of the city, so we decided to do some things in the newer section, like see the Herdenturschwalmühl. Oh, my German is so bad. It's a windmill, and it has a restaurant in it, so we actually decided to have lunch there. This was one of those experiences that I feel like was super unique and memorable, and the food was really, really good, so I highly recommend going to it, even if you just were to stop in for some coffee. Then headed over to the Overseas Museum, which actually had a lot to see and do. Some of the exhibits were interactive, and it really just kind of displayed exhibits from all over the world. About 75% of the signage was in English, but we did have to break out our Google Translator app camera feature occasionally, which was a lifesaver because my German is terrible. And speaking of my bad German skills, if you ever visit, you will need to know some basic German. In Denmark, everyone pretty much spoke English, but in Germany, we found that most people only spoke a little, so it was really helpful that we knew some basic German, but everyone was super nice about it. So the next day we were really itching to see the older part of Bremen, so we headed to a famous street called Botterstrasse and followed that to the town market. We were so incredibly lucky this trip, you guys, because apparently they were having a festival while we were there. After doing some research, we found out that it was called the Free Market, and that they have this every October for the last 2 weeks of the month, and that it had been going on for 985 years. Like, how do we just happen to stumble upon an almost 1,000-year-old festival? I have no idea, but I am so glad that we did because this was literally the best part of the whole trip. There were vendors selling furs and wines and pretzels, as you could see me enjoying in that last clip. It was just so much fun, and I had multiple of these ham and cheese pretzels while we were there, and I missed them terribly. After eating my fill of pretzel, we walked around the marketplace, just enjoying the architecture. The cathedral was especially beautiful, as you just saw there. And then we did a bit of shopping and wandering around, taking the city in before we decided to go for a walk, and we happened upon a park by the art museum and decided to just relax there for a little bit before heading back to the hotel to drop off our purchases, because we definitely wanted to come back to that festival for dinner. Once we came back for dinner that evening, everything was all lit up and it looked so pretty. For dinner, I had some bratwurst, and for dessert, I had some cinnamon ice cream that I washed down with some warm glühwein, which is a German spiced wine that is served warm like the glögg was in Denmark. And after that, I couldn't resist the siren song of the carousel any longer and had to go for a ride. After that, we headed back for the night, and by the way, our hotel was space themed. Like, I know this is kind of irrelevant to the video, but this was by far the coolest place I've ever stayed. Apparently, it's a concept hotel, so the theme is just part of the ambiance, but to me it was so freaking cool to come home every night to this. I was just endlessly fascinated by it and was living all of my elementary school dreams. So yeah, I'm sure there are some people that are like, that's weird, that's immature, and those people are what I like to call wrong. Next day, we started off with another pretzel from the festival and went over to the Kunsthal, which is Bremen's main art museum. And let me tell you, this museum was very impressive. I have never seen so many prolific artists in one space. They had Degas, they had Peter Paul Rubens, Goya, Edvard Munch, Van Gogh, Manet, Lautrec. I could go on. For such a small city in the grand spectrum of cities, this had a very impressive art collection, and I was geeking out the whole time, recalling all of the works and artist names that I had learned from my art history classes in high school and college. Here I am just showing you some of the highlights, but there were so many I could not possibly fit them all in, so please just sit back and enjoy this abridged version of all of the cool paintings that we saw. They also had some fun modern art exhibits that were interactive, despite me having very little idea of what I was supposed to be getting from this one in particular. I did enjoy it, even though modern art is not my usual thing. I'm definitely more of a classics kind of gal. We then headed over to a historic section of Bremen called Schnorr. They have a lot of medieval historic buildings that are preserved, and walking through the alleys felt like we were going through a really cool maze of houses and shops. If you want to feel like you've stepped back in time, this is definitely the place to go. Unfortunately, it did start to rain, so we didn't hang around too long. Instead, we decided to go have dinner and then went on a walk once the rain had cleared up a little bit. After that, I went back to the carnival and we took in our last bit of carnival joy before heading back to the hotel to start our busy day tomorrow. The next morning was a travel day for us coming back to Ireland, but we wanted to make the most out of our trip, so we left early to catch a train to Cologne, Germany, so that we could do some sightseeing before our flight left. Outside the train station was the Cologne Cathedral, which was absolutely massive. When I went to Spain in high school, we had seen some amazing cathedrals, but this one was particularly ornate and majestic, so I took a lot of footage of it. To pass the time, we wandered around the city until we got to the Rhine River and decided to walk along there until dinner time. On the way back to the station to catch our train to the airport, we saw this really nice fountain that was depicting a fairy tale about the city, which involved the Heinzelmännchen, which were a type of gnome. In the story, apparently the gnomes did all the work for the citizens of Cologne at the nighttime, so that during the day the people could relax, until a tailor's wife upset them by trying to see them, and now the people of Cologne have to do all the work for themselves. So we caught our train and managed to figure out the airport layout in just enough time to catch our flight back to Dublin. And yeah, that was our trip. We made it back to Galway late in the evening. So thank you guys so much for watching.